Tribunal Judge of the Madras High Court in 2006 and became a permanent judge in the year 2009. His Lordship was sworn in as the Chief Justice of the High Court of Kerala on 11th of October 2019 and is the Chief Patron of KSMCC. With due respect to His Lordship, I invite Your Lordship to deliver the inaugural speech without lighting the lamp which is lighted in our hearts. Welcome, sir.
You have to unmute, brother.
Yeah. Honorable Brother Justice Alexander Thomas, Judge High Court of Kerala and President Board of Governors, Kerala State Mediation Conciliation Center. Honorable Justice Mushtaq Mohammed, Judge High Court of Kerala and Member Board of Governors, Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center. Honorable Justice Mary Joseph, Member, Board of Governors, Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center. Honorable Justice Ramakrishnan, Honorable Justice Sunil Thomas, my esteemed brother and sister judges, Honorable Justice Bharata Chakravarti, Judge, Madras High Court, Mr. J.B. Singh, Senior Advocate and Mediator, Delhi High Court, Srimati Iram Majid, Advocate and Mediator, Delhi High Court, Srimati Laila Olla Pillai, Advocate and Mediator, High Court of Karnataka, Mr. Jawad, Mediator, Madras High Court, Mr. Anil Xavier, Advocate and Mediator, High Court of Kerala, Mr. George Berlo Valat, Advocate and Mediator, High Court of Kerala, Mr. Johnny Sebastian, Director, Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center, learned judicial officers in the state of Kerala, dear mediators, my respected senior advocates, my dear junior lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Justice delayed is justice denied. And at the same time, justice hurried will make justice buried. As per the latest data available in the e-courts website, there are 4.76 crores of cases pending in the Honorable Supreme Court of India, all the high courts and subordinate courts in the country. Access to justice and early disposal are the priority. The process of mediation has been in existence even at the pre-British era, that people used to resolve disputes through panchayats and village heads. Due to the docket explosion, adjudication of cases have become time-consuming. Courts are blamed for the delay, while judges are working hard to reduce the backlog because of the heavy filing and huge pendency. It is not humanly possible for the judiciary alone to carry this massive load of cases in the traditional way. Thus, in the given scenario, there is a need to encourage alternative dispute redressal mechanisms. Martin Luther King said, I quote, "The bank of justice shall not be bankrupt. Access to justice for all, enshrined in our Constitution, is still an unaccomplished objective. In order to achieve this objective, we should follow the process of mediation as an effective alternate dispute redressal mechanism." As vividly said by Justice Sandra Day Connor, retired judge of the United States Supreme Court, courts should not be the places where resolution of disputes begin. They should be the places where the disputes end after alternative methods of resolving disputes having been considered and tried. The logic in adopting the approach of mediation is based on the fact that it is an amicable way of bringing parties driven agenda to sit together and find solutions to their differences. Mediation not only saves time, money, but it leads to re-establishment of trust and respect among the parties. In order to encourage mediation, a committed role is required to be played by both the bench and the bar, so as to create awareness and faith in the judicial system. A mediator should be a person with patience, persistence, with the skills of listening, articulation, and restatement. For arriving at a peaceful settlement, mindset, approach, and attitude of the mediator is very important. A mediator must act as a catalyst to bring the disputing parties together so that the parties can become partners in finding a solution. It should create an opportunity to arrive at a win-win formula, as mediation is built around a culture of give and take. Thus, the mediator should facilitate the above. However, this is my personal view, mediation has not made a headway in India. Whether it is the litigative mindset of the litigants or the mediators. In that context, the organizers have chosen a very important topic for discussion. Recently, considering the importance of mediation as an effective alternate dispute resolution mechanism, the central government has introduced a draft mediation bill 2021 in Rajya Sabha, widening the scope of mediation. The draft bill aims to facilitate and promote mediation in India, particularly institutional mediation for the resolution of disputes, encouraging community mediation, and make online mediation an acceptable and cost-effective process. It proposes to bring about a standalone law on mediation and contemplates the international practice of using the terms conciliation and mediation interchangeably, as India is a signatory to the Singapore Convention on Mediation. Disputes in courts are many in account of the activities of the multinational companies in India, which expect early disposal of disputes. Certainly, there should be ease of doing business. In that context, the topic selected for this conference, how to make mediation in India at par with international standards, assumes significance. I wish the governments, both central and state, to provide opportunities to the mediators for getting them trained abroad, so that our mediators can adopt the best practices followed by their counterparts abroad. I'm very happy to see Justice Bharat Chakravarti, Judge Madras High Court, is one of the panelists today. Before his elevation, he was an accredited mediator with the Tamil Nadu Mediation and Conciliation Center, having mediated around 400 referrals. He has several publications to his credit, mostly on mediation. As I was a member of the mediation committee in the Madras High Court, he had developed a very beautiful skit with lawyers acting as to how a mediator should be. I'm happy to see the learned mediators across the country, including Mr. Javed. I sincerely congratulate Honorable Justice Alexander Thomas, the President, and other members of the Board of Governors of the Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center for organizing this National Conference on Mediation. I also extend my congratulations to the learned panelists, moderators, and all the participants of this conference. I'm sure by this conference, many innovative ideas will be generated, as well as greater understanding of the concerns of the parties. Before I conclude, I may quote the words of Joseph Greenbaum, an acclaimed mediator of the United States. I quote, "An ounce of mediation is worth a pound of an arbitration and a ton of litigation." I wish the conference all success. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those enlightening and encouraging words. And now we are coming to the end of this inaugural ceremony. And before that, I'll take this opportunity to thank His Lordship, Honorable Justice Sunil Thomas, Member KSMCC, and Her Ladyship Honorable Mrs. Justice Mary Joseph, Member KSMCC, and Justice Ramakrishnan Sir, Satyan Sir, and all other learned judges and senior advocates who have graced this occasion with their presence. And of course, Sir, Bharat Chakravarti Sir, I haven't forgotten you, but you're on the panel, and of course, we consider you as one amongst us. Thank you for your presence at the beginning of the session itself. Now, coming to the end of the session, I'd like to invite our director, Mr. Johnny Sebastian, who has been with us for the past more than 2 years, and under whose guidance, lots of programs, including community mediation programs, awareness program for students of law colleges, refresher program for mediators of all districts, awareness program on mediation for young advocates, and also commercial mediation for the business community has been taking place even during this time of pandemic. Our director has stood and seen to it that the programs of KSMCC are conducted without any break. Sir, I welcome you to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good morning, esteemed dignitaries. We have reached the conclusion of the inaugural session of the first National Conference 2022 conducted by Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center. This program has been inaugurated by none other than the Honorable Chief Justice of Kerala, Justice S. Manikumar. His Lordship is always a source of strength to KSMCC in its programs. On behalf of the organizers of this conference, I may express our sincere gratitude and thanks to the Honorable Chief Justice S. Manikumar. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Honorable Justice Alexander Thomas, the President of KSMCC, in fact, His Lordship has mooted this very idea of conducting a national conference this year. On behalf of KSMCC and on behalf of all other Board of Governors, I express our sincere thanks to Honorable Justice Alexander Thomas. Thank you very much, sir. Today's welcome speech was delivered by Honorable Justice A. Muhammad Mushtaq. I may express our sincere thanks to Honorable Justice A. Muhammad Mushtaq. Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Justice Sunil Thomas and Honorable Justice Mary Joseph, members of the Board of Governors of KSMCC, and other Honorable Judges of the High Court of Kerala, as well as Honorable Justice K. Ramakrishnan, are attending this event. Let me place on record our sincere thanks to all these judges. Thanks very much, sir. Honorable Justice D. Bharata Chakravarti, Judge Madras High Court, Senior Advocate J.P. Singh, Advocate Leila Ullapalli, Advocate Iram Majid, Advocate Anil Xavier, and Advocate George Marla Pallat are the resource persons for today's programs and discussions. I may express our sincere thanks to all these eminent personalities. My sincere thanks to Srimati S.M. Patil and other officials from MCPC, all judicial officers from Kerala and other states who attend this program, all mediators and other stakeholders. Thanks very much. I may place on record sincere thanks of KSMC to Srimati Jyoti Govinathan, the master of the ceremony, and all members of the Executive Committee of Mediators, as well as the mediator trainers. I may also express our sincere thanks to all those who attend this program and those who have associated with KSMCC in conducting this program. Thanks to one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And as such, we come to the end of the inaugural session, and we are into the business session. So do we need a break, sir, or we'll continue? Johnny, sir?
Pardon, Jyoti?
Do we need a break or we are continuing?
No, we can directly proceed to the next business session, Jyoti.
Okay. So we are into the business session, but before beginning the session, I'd like to pay tribute to Senior Advocate Dhirendra Parikh, sir, who left us yesterday. He is one of the India's great luminary and senior mediator who has left for his heavenly abode. I would recite the mantra from the Upanishad, and if anyone can follow, can recite along with me, but with your mic switched off. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamuchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May his soul rest in peace. So we know time is short and journey is long, but the introduction of the moderator and panelists is a must. So I begin with introducing Ms. Iram Majid. She is the moderator for the first session. A legal professional with experience in handling wide range of subjects from criminal, matrimonial, civil, banking, finance matters as an advocate and as a mediator. She is accredited mediator and director of the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation and an IMI certified mediator. Ms. Iram had completed her LLM from KUK University and has undergone training in mediation and cross-culture mediation from Pepperdine University, Strauss Institute of Dispute Resolution USA, and advanced mediation training from Harvard Law School USA. She is certified for international business negotiations and is a mediator enlisted on the panel of the Delhi High Court Mediation Center Samadhan, and is also an arbitrator with the Delhi International Arbitration Center. Ms. Iram is the Secretary General of International Federation of Mediators and a member of the CIAB UK and member of many international organizations, including the Young Singapore International Arbitration Center, Chartered Institute of Arbitration, UK. She is the co-author of the book, Definition of Mediation, published by BLT, and has compiled a book, Landmark Judgments on Mediation and Arbitration. Now, I invite my brother trainer, Mr. Muhammad Shiraz, to introduce the other panelist, that is Srimati Laila Ullapalli. Welcome, sir.
Namaskaram to one and all. I am Muhammad Shiraz, mediation trainer from KSMCC High Court of Kerala. I have the privilege to introduce Advocate Laila Olapalli, who needs no introduction as she is a trainer and guru of almost all the mediators in India. Madam Laila Olapalli was an advocate practicing in the Karnataka High Court and the Honorable Supreme Court of India for more than 2 decades. Of late, she has been concentrating on mediation and has left litigation. She is a mediator master trainer of the MCPC Supreme Court of India. She was a founding coordinator of the Bangalore Mediation Center, one of the premier mediation institutes, mediation centers in India. She is presently the director of International Mediation Institute. She is on the panel of mediators of the Singapore International Mediation Center and several other international mediation centers. She was a member of the Supreme Court nominated committee for drafting legislation on mediation. It has been referred to the subject committee at present. And she underwent advanced mediation training at Harvard Law School in the US. Madam Laila Olapalli was also instrumental in framing the mediation training manual. Madam, I welcome you to this program. Over to Ms. Jyoti.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'd like to introduce, and I consider it my privilege to introduce our next panelist, that is Mr. A.J. Jawad, my guru. Guruve Namaha. Jawad sir has been a mediator since 2007, and he has extensive experience in mediating commercial, contractual, matrimonial, and child custody cases. He needs no introduction as far as the mediators, as far as the mediators in Kerala are concerned. He has been with the Kerala state from the very beginning of the training programs for mediators. He is a trainer with MCPC Supreme Court of India and has trained lawyers and judges in mediation all over India and has conducted training of trainers, that is the TOT workshops for the MCPC. Jawad sir is empaneled with SIMC as an India Specialist Mediator. He is accredited as a SIMI Level 3 Mediator. He is a panel mediator with the Bombay Chamber of Commerce. Jawad sir is also empaneled as an arbitrator with the Madras High Court. He works for the ADR ODR International UK, a thought leader in ADR and ODR. He is as a mediator and global for quality and has been involved in mediation training programs in universities in the UK and India. He is a partner and head of ADR services with KD Lex Chambers, a firm offering a range of ADR services. He is a specialist guest faculty with the Maharashtra National Law University. Welcome, sir. Welcome to this program of ours. Next, I hand over to Sri Mohammed Shiraz.
I have great privilege and pleasure in introducing Advocate Anil Savior, my colleague at the bar and a longtime friend. He is the president of the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation. He is the chairman of the Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and an IMI certified mediator. Anil Savior is also a practicing advocate at the Kerala High Court. He is a senior fellow of the Dispute Resolution Institute of the Hamline University School of Law. He is a member of the Mediation Certification Committee of the MCPC Supreme Court of India. He was also, along with Madam Laila Olapalli, he was also a member of the Supreme Court Nominated Committee on Drafting of Mediation Statute. He was nominated as one of the world's leading practitioners in the field of ADR. I have great pleasure in introducing Advocate Anil Savior, who is straddling the national and international fields of mediation. Welcome to the program, sir. Over to Madam Jyoti.
So that was the part of introduction. And now it's over to Ma'am Ram Majid. Welcome, ma'am. The platform is yours.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jyoti, for the warm welcome. And thank you, Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Committee, for organizing this mega event and inviting me. Thank you, Justice Mani Kumar, Justice Mushtaq, Justice Mary Joseph, Justice Sunil Thomas, Justice Alexander, Justice Johnny Sebastian, and my friend Thankachan, Mr. George, Suresh, and all participants who are present over here. In today's session, we shall discuss the current status of mediation in India. Any discussion on prevailing condition of mediation in India is not possible without discussing the roads not taken. Thus, through the course of discussion, our panelists will ponder over the opportunities missed by India in implementation of the proper mediation mechanism in the country. But as it is, it's better to be late than never. Hence, we shall also focus on the measures that can be taken to improve the status of mediation in our country. One such measure is the proposal on the draft mediation. While that mark a welcome move, but we should not forget that it is still only a proposal, and we are far away from having a proper regulation on the mediation, let alone an efficient and established system in the various, in the various foreign jurisdictions. So in the light of this, through the course of discussion, we're going to focus, and we also be focusing on seeking the recommendations from our distinguished speaker that may be incorporated to make India's mediation practice parallel to the international standards. And coming to the moot point of discussion, I briefly put forth my analysis on the topic before we move to other distinguished panelists for their opinion. I feel that we have to view this position of mediation in India from two perspectives, domestic and international. And before delving into a comparison of these perspectives, it is pertinent to note that the reason which propelled India's mediation drive, in the word of the former Prime Minister, United Kingdom, William Gladstone, justice delayed is justice denied. These words form the ethos and the basic reasons which compelled the Indian judicial system to look beyond the adversarial method of dispute resolution. Indian courts have been plagued with pendency of disputes since long. Hence, in order to reform the justice system, there has been a concerted push since then to ADR. And the first real push is in this direction was the insertion of Section 89, then Salem Bar Association case, and then establishment of the mediation court annex centers, mediation centers, MCPC committee to oversee the growth. These measures led to the expansion of mediation services. However, this, when compared to the development and growth of the mediation internationally, shows that India's position is still much at a premature stage. That is largely due to three reasons, which I understand. So, firstly, the growth of private institution is slow and stagnant, and the lack of party trust in the mediation mechanism in India. Secondly, in India, the idea of mediation as a medium for dispute resolution settlement has still not percolated to the grassroots level. And thirdly, the failure of being able to create a dedicated umbrella body constituting expert representing gender, regional, generational, and communal diversity to lead the growth of the movement and tap it on its vast potential. The mediation in India has not been able to achieve exponential growth as internationally. Consequently, there exists much for the mediation circuit in India to improve, evolve, and achieve as per the international standards. This was my view on the topics today for the discussion. Now let us move to our revered speakers for today. And before we individually converse with them, I would like to open the floor by asking a common question addressed to all. And this common question is, after approximately 17 years of domestic mediation, in your opinion, what do you think is the position and status of Indian mediation with respect to the justice delivery? And where does it exist on your spectrum of expectations? So I would like to start with ladies first, Ms. Laila Ulapalli.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And I want to say how privileged I am to be on this panel. Kerala is always very close to my heart. No biases, but I must say that my roots are from there, and I always had this commitment and loyalty to the people of Kerala. So thank you very much. And to all the eminent luminaries, friends, colleagues here, I'm happy to be with you. To answer your question, Ira, yes, 17 years. And I am happy that every high court in our country has provided a table for our litigants who want to resolve to go and resolve the dispute. This is a big step. However, as Iram rightly said, there is a long way to go. Mediation, the growth of mediation has several arms. The court annexed, private institutional mediation, community mediation. This is a cultural change, a change of mindset, which has to permeate into every human mind. And for that, all these arms have to be strengthened. In 2007, I was sent to the US on a study tour by the High Court of Karnataka. I sat in a court hall. 60 cases came up for me on that morning. Out of the 60 cases, the judge referred 52 for mediation. But what I want to mark here is the judge referred it for mediation. He did not say court, private, community. He said, go and mediate. Wherever you find a good mediator, get your cases mediated. At 10 o'clock, the judge came to have tea with us and he said, you know, I can be confident 70% of these disputes will be settled. So what does that mean? The judge is confident that he is sending these cases out to good mediators. Mediators who have the competence, and the parties can exercise their voluntary decision who the mediator is. When our country gains that confidence, when our judges can say, go and mediate, wherever it is, the mediation movement grows, the litigants get happier. And just as a simple analogy, in the healthcare system, we need the government hospitals and we need the private hospitals. Because today the world of medicine is more complex, more advanced. Similarly, the world of conflict, it is the clients are more sophisticated, the laws are complex, expectations are high. Every arm of the mediation movement, when it grows, when it strengthens equally, I will say the needle has moved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laila ma'am, for giving your very elaborative answer. And we can understand, yes, that the mediation should not be used as a docket for cutting down the pendency of the court, but it should be used as a single standalone process to resolve the dispute. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. And now I would like to ask Mr. Jawad, your views.
Thank you, Iram. It's really an honor to be here. While anybody can accuse Laila of having a bias towards Kerala, nobody can accuse me of that because I am not a Keralite. But let me tell you this, that at one point of time, Kerala was almost a second home. I have perhaps conducted training programs in almost every district in Kerala. And some bonds have developed, bonds of friendship have developed that have stood the test of time. And I'm very proud to say that I'm a very, perhaps a small but an insignificant part of it, but nevertheless a part of the growth of the mediation movement in Kerala. So it's a matter of great pride for me to be here today, and especially to share the dais with you, of course, and with Laila, who's also, I regard her as one of my gurus, and with my good friend Anil. So having said that, I think I fully agree with Laila's perspective that there are two ways of looking at it. One as a means of dispute, perhaps lowering the burden of the courts, and the other part of it is the very paradigm of dispute resolution. How do we look at that? How do we look at dispute resolution? Do we always need a third person to say who's right and who's wrong? Or do we empower the parties to rise above their differences, discuss their differences, and find a resolution? Now, that is where mediation comes in. Now, if you ask the question, how far we have traveled for the past 17 years, the very fact that we are having a national conference online on mediation, the very fact that we are today discussing a standalone law on mediation, the very fact that mediation has become a sort of a buzzword in the field of dispute resolution shows that we have come quite a long way. Of course, being the mediation fanatics we are, it's just not enough. We still have a long way to go. To quote Robert Frost, miles to go before we see. So we are still, I think, somewhere near the halfway mark, where perhaps towards mainstreaming mediation. And I feel that where this change needs to come about is basically in our minds, in the mindsets of people, because the paradigm of litigation is so fixated today that people feel that the only way to resolve a dispute is to get it adjudicated before a court of law. I think we need to move beyond that. And that is where I think a lot more awareness, a lot more work needs to be done. But what is very encouraging today, I speak from the perspective of court-annexed mediation, because when we started off in 2005, there are two things that I would like to point out to show how far we have traveled. When we started off in 2005, when the Mediation Center in Chennai started, and Madras High Court started, I remember that, we used to go from chamber to chamber begging people to come and attend the training and get trained as mediators. And today, it's a matter of great pride that we have more than 400 applications pending and many more still waiting to apply to get trained as mediators. And yesterday, I just completed a 40-hour mediation training program for our Madras High Court. And the enthusiasm and the commitment with which the participants took part in the training was something which was very uplifting for us, for the resource persons who conducted the training program. So it is a very encouraging thing. And today the time has come where lawyers are asking the courts to refer their clients to mediation. So in most cases that we see today that are getting referred, the initiative is coming from either the lawyers or the parties. So that is as far as court-annexed mediation is concerned. Now, as far as private mediation is concerned, I think one of the biggest roadblocks is on the issue of enforceability. So what happens even if we go through this process of mediation and we reach an agreement, how do we enforce it, is one of the concerns. And I think that concern would perhaps be addressed by the mediation bill that is in the pipeline. And once it becomes a reality, once it becomes the law, I think that issue will also be hopefully resolved. So I'm very optimistic about the growth of mediation in India, and I look forward to a really exciting time ahead. And just one more thing I will add, sorry if I'm taking too much time. What is most encouraging is the response of the youngsters, because I do a lot of coaching for students who are entering into mediation competitions. And the fact that once upon a time, we used to hear only about moot court competitions. Today, mediation competitions, I think, have have overshadowed the moot court competitions. And the number of students who are coming forward and who really, once they attend these programs and once they undergo the training, they are giving a commitment that, for us, this is going to be our profession. So that is what I think is one of the most encouraging things that is happening today. Thank you very much.
Said that we still have a long way to go. And with this, I would like to ask Mr. Anil Xavier your view. But before that, I would like to say that generally you are a very positive person, but now today since you are a COVID positive, so I understand that your voice is bad, and we all here to to cooperate with you. And it's a pleasure for me to be on this panel and moderating with you as my mentor. Thank you so much, sir. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Viram. I think being extra positive has caused COVID positive also to me. But anyhow, I have a small problem with my throat. But before that, let me thank the Kerala Mediation Center, because it's always good to be speaking at the home court or the hometown. As Mohammed Shiraz said, I was here for a long period, and even though I was not very actively participating in the home mediations, I was actually very much involved and in the know-how of the actors happening there. And when we organized the first mediation training in 2004, in jointly with the European training team, Justice Mustaq was one of the participants in that training. So we had a very long association from that time onwards, and speaking as one of the pioneers in mediation, he was definitely there from that time. And asking about your question about how I feel after 17 years, it's a little bit complicating or a confusing question to answer. Definitely, as Laila and Javad said, the attitude of the lawyers, the spirit of the young lawyers and the youngsters to adopt mediation, and the attitude of the courts in supporting mediation has definitely gone a long way. But as today the Chief Justice said, with 40 million cases pending in courts as litigation, if you look at the comparative growth of litigation in the last 17 years and the proportionate growth of mediation in the last 17 years, I don't think it is encouraging. Or at least I should say that mediation has not so far attained the status of a serious dispute resolution mechanism. It is still one among the few, or one among the few ADR mechanisms that are available. But if we still think that lack of awareness, because even now we think lack of awareness amongst the users is one of the reasons for mediation not being used as it should be. See, especially when most of the participants in this conference would be favoring mediation because they know the plus and the minuses of what is good in mediation and how mediation should be used. But considering those theoretical aspects of the advantages of mediation, why people are not selecting it? It cannot be just lack of awareness, because even after 17 years, we are saying lack of awareness, there is some serious defect in our approach. So what I feel is the lack of awareness, more than the lack of awareness, why mediation is not being used as it should be, is or could be the reason of lack of proper implementation. So even though we are concentrating on trainings, we are concentrating on creating more mediators, I think we have to give more priority, more attention to how actually mediation is conducted at the grassroots level. Because to oversee what is happening in mediation and whether the users are really satisfied with the process. See, I'm saying about the process, it is not the outcome. See, suppose you refer 10 matters to mediation and 8 got settled. That is not the success. See, how the 10 people who were into mediation felt about the process is the most important thing. A person who has gone to mediation should come back to mediation. It is not as if they have successfully completed the dispute or resolved the dispute. How they felt during the process is the most important thing. If the parties do feel comfortable in mediation and they feel happy in participating in mediation, definitely we would have seen a much better growth in mediation than what we have seen today. So let us see how things could be better, because I think today's session is mostly concentrating on making a better mediation process or making it in more, more professional and more international. So I hope after the end of the session, we may find out some solutions how to make implementation better. Okay, looking forward.
Thank you so much. So definitely this is going to be a roadmap for finding out the solution for this. And if I understand correctly, that there are two things like adoption and awareness. So if we talk about awareness of the mediation since 2005, after the Salem Bar Association case, so it's pretty clear that we are aware about the mediation, and mediation has become adult since 2005 to 2022. And now it's a time to adopt. So how adoption and how we move towards that process, how we attain that. So we will be looking in this session. So with this, I think now we witness at an almost a unanimous opinion that the growth and the development of mediation was not up to the requisite expectations. And so Jawad sir, I'm coming to you. You were in the field of mediation for a considerable period of time. And Jawad sir, in your opinion, what do you think what are hurdles that hinder the growth and development of mediation, straying it away from the expectations of mediation professionals? Over to you.
That's a good question. And I think Anil has made a point when he spoke about standards, training of mediators. Now, what I personally feel is that there are two things actually, according to me. One is, I think, the people's mindset, because as Anil also pointed out, that 17 years is quite a long time for us to, really make mainstream mediation as a mainstream dispute resolution process, and it is the need of the hour. But why is it taking us so long? Now the problem here with us is the way we think. Because we say that 15,000 years back we had rocket science, 15,000 years back we had plastic surgery, 15,000 years back we had mediation. Some of our historical figures were perhaps the best mediators the world has ever known. But if you just look at the modern era and see that 3 decades ago, in the 1970s, US had accepted and embraced mediation as a part of the court system, and even a part of the dispute resolution system away from the court also. It took us 3 decades for us to just bring in a provision like Section 89 in our Code of Civil Procedure. And after that, it has taken us 17 years to start talking about a law on mediation, a standalone law on mediation. So I think one of the biggest factors is that the colonial paradigm of the court system has become so entrenched in our minds. And perhaps one of the things that prevents us from taking the responsibility of resolving our own disputes is the fear of taking decisions on our own. I think there are many psychological factors also at work here, socio-psychological factors, the way our families are structured, the way our education system is structured, which actually discourages us from independent thinking. So I think that is one of the biggest hurdles that I think that we need to cross. That is why I said, but today when we see the youngsters, I draw my inspiration purely from the youth, from my interactions with them, and from the way I see them embracing this process, and from the way I see them questioning, all these paradigms, and the way they are eager to bring about the change. See, today we are in an era of speed because everything has to happen fast. Okay, so nobody has the patience to wait for 12 years or 14 years for the courts to, ponder upon and decide how the dispute should be resolved, or who's right and who's wrong. Now, if you look at the way commerce is going, if you look at e-commerce, if you look at platforms like Amazon, eBay, these are all platforms that, I'm told that, for example, if you take Amazon, I think perhaps out of 60,000 disputes that get resolved through their algorithms, I think just a couple of hundred disputes come for an interface between the customer and the service provider or the seller. So that is what we are talking about. So the speed with which technology is moving, and the fact that we are having this conference virtually, with me sitting in my house and Anil sitting in Kerala and Laila sitting in Bangalore and you sitting in Delhi, and all of us attending from all over, from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. I think what we need to be talking about is not just about how to develop mediation, but how to use technology for the purposes of implementing these collaborative dispute resolution processes. Because that, I think, is the need of the hour today. And one of the most important things that would need to be really addressed is, what are the standards? because we have this tendency to believe that, we are culturally different from the rest of the world, and therefore we need to have. I agree with that proposition. But, the way the process is structured, what are the qualifications that a mediator should have? It is not that everybody can mediate. Now, when I told you yesterday, when I conducted the training program, the response of the trainees was, we thought that mediation is just some kind of an ad hoc process where you sit and talk to the parties and tell them that do this, do this, do this. But we did not know that it was so complex, that you need to have an understanding of people's psychology. You need to understand the concept of conflict, where the conflict is coming from, the fact that there are communication skills like active listening, there are negotiation skills like principled negotiation and how to conduct the principled negotiation, how to exchange offers between parties, how to do all these things. We did not know. Now, that is the kind of awareness that needs to be created, actually. And one more aspect that I feel needs to be done is, let me complete about the standards part of it first. Because when we talk about standards, see, we are a country where, perhaps we are not alone in this. I think these kind of things happen in other countries. A couple of days back, I was reading a newspaper report that on a film set, an arbitration, a fake arbitration was conducted, and an award was passed and property was transferred, and the court had to intervene and set aside. So, see, one of the things I think when we talk of standards is also the question of professional integrity and what kind of accountability is going to be there for mediators. So when we talk of standards, now Singapore has got, they have Singapore International Mediation Institute, SIMI. And SIMI is not a mediation service provider, but it has set some standards. And they, they have prescribed what kind of training should go in to train mediators. And they certify the training programs and say that these are the qualities that the training program should have. And if you undergo the training program, only then you are eligible to be accredited as a mediator. And then they have different levels. At level 1, if you undergo the basic mediation training program and you start working as a mediator, you get accredited at level 1. Then you go on increasing with your practice and you reach ultimately level 4. So when you become a semi-certified mediator. So I think those are the kind of standards, and instead of reinventing the wheel, perhaps we can collaborate with bodies like SIMI, or we have IMI. You are an IMI certified mediator. I think Laila is also an IMI certified mediator. Unfortunately, I'm still not. Anil is also an IMI certified mediator. So we need to have that kind of association with these bodies to evolve those standards. And we need to prescribe the guidelines for what kind of training. I think one point that Anil made, and which I fully agree, is the standard of training that goes in. So what is the qualification of the trainers? What kind of trainers should we have, first of all? And what kind of training should be imparted to the mediators? And what are the standards that the mediators should follow? Of course, the standards have to be rigorous, at the same time flexible, to accommodate the cultural and the contextual situations that may come up in the mediation. So I feel that we need to do a lot of work. Okay, a whole lot of work needs to be done. We started that. We are still working on it, and we were hoping that the law will take into account all these things, the proposed bill. But of course, the bill falls short of our expectations, and I think all the work that people like Laila and all put into preparing the draft has amounted to nothing, because I think for most part, I don't know, perhaps parts of what the recommendations that were given, I think the bill has taken into consideration, but it has come out in a rather slipshod way, which I feel needs to be addressed. And it's a good thing that the government has referred it back to a committee for the comments, and we are all working on those comments. So I think once the law comes into place and once regulatory bodies are set up and once standards are prescribed, I think that is where mediation may become mainstream. Apart from, of course, the question of enforceability of mediated settlement agreements.
Thank you so much, Jawad sir. You have made a very, very valid point regarding the use of technology and also regarding the international standards. See, this is what we feel, and also it's a unanimous opinion that we need to see the mediation is a global profession now, it liberates jurisdiction. So we need to have a uniform pattern and uniform understanding of the international standards.
Exactly.
Unless we will match those standards, we will fail in those areas. And there may be different standards, ethical standards, code of conduct, and no doubt accreditation. So you have made a very valid point, and I think this this webinar, this discussion, or the roundtable discussion is moving towards, giving a thought to all the people who are into the profession in the mediation to think about from this perspective, and hope that this webinar is going to give them a new, completely a different insight about it. Since we are talking about the international standards, so I would like to come to Lala ma'am. See, once you have an area, expertise in the area in the court and its mediation, and due to your involvement in the same for the considerable period of time, in your opinion, ma'am, considering the state of the current mediation in India, do you think that it can grow and develop as per the international standards? Over to you, ma'am. You are muted, ma'am. No, it's fine. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm an eternal optimist. We are the land, with due respect to Jawad, from where Mahatma Gandhi came. And he was the inspiration for Martin Luther King, who was mentioned today by the Honorable Chief Justice. So I truly believe that we have the potential for great international mediators. I agree, standards are important. Gold standards. Mediation, as Anil said, is primarily about the experience. What is the experience we leave our parties with? It's primarily about the mediator. I will briefly explain my experience with an international mediator. In 2011, I went on a fellowship to the US, and I was given the opportunity to observe 7 international mediators, and I'm going to explain one experience. This was a bankruptcy dispute described as one of the biggest bankruptcy disputes in the history of America. And I'm waiting for this mediator, Danny Weinstein, who's going to mediate this dispute to come in. I peep into the room where the parties are. There is a battery of lawyers from different parts of the world, about 15 parties, boxes and boxes of documents. I was waiting to see how this person is going to mediate this. Here he comes, looks most unassuming, maybe 5 feet 3 inches tall, bald. I walked down the corridor with him and thinking, poor man, he doesn't know what he's in for. He gets into the room and he transforms into Rajnikant, into somebody who is this amazing personality. In no time, he has a grip of all the facts. He's like a symphony master. He has connected to those battery of lawyers and huge number of parties, individually connected to each of them. He can handle the diversity, cultures, facts, emotions, and synchronize it into one synergy. He builds hope. He's understood all those facts. In no time, he's master of the facts. He's really done his homework. Not only does he understand the facts, he makes them understand that I know the facts absolutely well. There's hope, there's trust, there's safety in that room. He knows, they know he will handle confidentiality like no other. They know that he knows how to make a settlement which can be enforceable. He can work with the parties to make a settlement that's enforceable, maintains neutrality. So, as was mentioned earlier, this is a very complex process. And we need mediators who can handle these kind of situations. Very same, Danny Weinstein came to India in 2018 and we co-mediated, he and I co-mediated a partnership dispute. He brought in the same level of expertise, hope, connection, neutrality into that much smaller dispute. This, to me, is the gold standard. I believe we have many such Mahatma Gandhis in India. Pick them out, choose them, encourage them. We have international mediators in India.
Thank you so much, Laila ma'am, for enlightening us with this, that we need more Mahatma, and everyone has an Atma, and what Atma is doing is adversarial thing. And for being a Mahatma, we need to shift our mindset to the dispute resolution, amicable resolution. So with this, I would like to go back to Jawad sir. You have made one point, and I want to connect that point to Anil sir, that you have also mentioned about the mediation bill, that the mediation bill will be in the, it was drafted in any other form and it has come up in different form, and now we need and we wait for that. So my question is to you, Anil sir, that since you have been involved in the private mediation, both domestically and internationally, for approximately good 20 years, and in your opinion, do you think that the proposed draft mediation bill would be a revolutionary factor in evolving private mediation in a manner similar to the most mediation-friendly countries? Over to you, sir.
I have absolutely no doubt about it, because to create a great movement of mediation, we need a mediation law. There is no doubt. See, when you're saying about the so-called pro-mediation friendly countries, see, they have become pro-friendly not because the court supported it. Because, see, wherever the mediation is pro-friendly, the parties or the users had the option to choose mediation even without voting. So that was made those jurisdictions or those countries. See, only private mediation or pre-litigation mediation can create that culture. See, when courts refer parties to mediation, see, this can happen during the initial years when the concept is not very familiar with the parties. See, it is like hand-holding of a child during the child's younger days. But you can't hold the child once the child is 18 years. Because now if you're talking about mediation, we are touching 18 years now. And you can't expect a parent to hold the child in his hand even after 18 years. It should be left free. The mediation has to grow or has to develop on its own. And universally, mediation is accepted as an independent, standalone method of dispute resolution and not as a branch of litigation where the courts use it as a tool to bring down court dockets. It is a standalone method where disputes are resolved by a systematic method, by a professional method on its own. And understanding this, that mediation is used by business houses or commercial disputants as a standalone method and an accepted method, has prompted the United Nations to come out with the Singapore Convention. And exactly for this reason, Singapore Convention has made pure and private mediation to be under the part of the Singapore Convention and left out court-annexed mediations or what do you call a similar type of mediation.
Negotiations and all.
Like conciliation. See, suppose the conciliated agreements under the Conciliation Act, those type of matters are taken out from the Singapore Convention. And our draft mediation bill, which we were talking about, was made based on the Singapore Convention because India being a signatory, we had to make a law to ratify the convention and to make effect of the enforceability of those mediated settlement agreements. So this bill also, the mediation bill which we have enacted, or which is now before the Parliament and before the Standing Committee, this was also made giving emphasis or priority to private mediation, and how that can be implemented, how that can be enforced, and how the mediators could be accredited. All those matters are being brought in. But as Jawad has pointed out, even though the mediation bill was made with a lot of deliberations, Laila knows, because we had a lot of interstate differences.
The disclaimer.
Interstate differences between the drafting members, different viewpoints were put forward, and ultimately a draft proposal bill was made. And see, unfortunately, when the bill went to the ministry, see, the ministry had taken opinions from different other ministries, and every of them gave a little bit of their inputs. Now, ultimately, the elephant was made, but unfortunately, the trunk was on the backside and the tail was on the front side. It made a complete mess of the whole act, and fortunately, the bill has not been passed. Unlike many other bills which will come to the parliament and it is passed without any debate. This, I think, maybe the prayers of the mediation community. This happened to be sent to the standing committee, and we hope that the standing committee will look into it and take appropriate remedies. So, in fact, I remember when Henry Ford made the first automobile. It is reported that when he was asked, he said, "If I had asked the users what they need, they would have never thought of bringing an automobile, because when you're using horse carts, the best next method would be to get faster horses or healthier horses." So this is what the parliament is trying to do with the mediation, because when you're talking about a comparison with litigation, when you're getting a better justice or at a faster justice, mediation is not just meant for faster justice. Mediation has got other roles as well. It is not just faster horses. It is an automobile by itself. So it will be very odd to make a comparison whether litigation is good or mediation is good or arbitration is good. Everything has got its own compartment. That is why, see, if you know, now ADR is not called as alternative dispute resolution. It is called as appropriate dispute resolution, because every dispute resolution method has to be used appropriately for the right case and for the right choice. So Mediation Act definitely will make a change, provided the Mediation Act is a mediation act.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us an insight about horse and elephant. Thank you so much, and for making it that the Mediation Act should be Mediation Act, because this is what you mean to say, that we have, taken up many provisions from the arbitration, and we are trying to make this mediation to another arbitration. So it should not be another arbitration. The mediation should be mediation. Thank you so much for this deliberation. Now, with this, I would like to come back to the Laila ma'am. That furthermore, how do you think that the mediation system can get a professional color, and the relevant stakeholder would take it as seriously and professionally, like as arbitration for the dispute resolution? And in your opinion, what do you think about the mandatory pre-litigation mediation? Do you think it would enable to promote appropriate mediation standard to discourage mediations or to encourage mediation among the parties? What is your opinion about the pre-litigation mediation, ma'am? Over to you.
Iram, when you want to compare two professions, it has to be apple to apple or oranges to oranges. If you're talking of a profession which is pro bono under the free legal aid, and you compare it to arbitration, where arbitrators charge lakhs and lakhs of rupees, you can't have it. You have to bring both these professions on par for dispute resolution, which in terms of merit, there's absolutely no reason to put one behind the other. So that is number one. Number two, to recognize that mediation to become a profession where parties pay for is a big challenge. And why I say that, intuitively, I think Javad had also mentioned it, intuitively and culturally, we are adversarial in conflict. Adversarial. We like to be placed as adversaries, as opponents, and we like to be declared a winner, which is not what mediation does. Mediation gets the adversaries to collaborate and come out with creative, value-creating options. But intuitively, human instinct draws us away from that process. Culturally, 200 years draws us away from that process. So only if the experience that we provide in mediation is par excellence will parties pay for it. I want to give you an example. This was a case referred by the High Court. Parties to international companies approached the court for appointment of an arbitrator under Section 11. The judge appointed the arbitrator and said, try mediation before you go in for arbitration. So they came in for mediation. They came kicking and screaming. They said, please finish off this process fast. We are here only because the judge said so. So don't waste our time, send us fast. The arbitrator has already been appointed. It took me a long while to calm them, slowly bring them to a conversation, bring the CEOs together, work with options. And finally, I saw them swimming into this process like duck to water. And they settled. And they said, all commercial disputes should be resolved like this. This is their response. But it required the judge to push them into that process. And that is where mandatory mediation can benefit. But there is a caveat. Unless the experience is good, it is a bad name for mediation. It is another loop that the parties who are already overburdened have to jump through. So unless we can ensure a positive experience in mandatory mediation, it can be counterproductive.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So it is like we have to bring more people to the mediation room, and it's again a tough job to make them to sit there, because if they not feel environment is conducive, they may run after that. So we need to bring more people and make them sit inside the room. That is
Yes.
That should be the idea.
So the unique feature of mediation, which is voluntary, you can walk out anytime, self-determination. These two make it way more challenging than other dispute resolution mechanisms.
It's like
excellence, the quality of the mediator is the most crucial.
Yeah, it's like the horse. You can bring the horse near to the water to drink, but whether the horse will drink it or not, it's up to the horse.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Javad sir, would you like to add something to this? I could see from your body language that you want to add something.
Is it so obvious?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I have nothing to disagree with Laila said. In fact, she has only reinforced the point that I made about establishing standards. Because when you want to have that Danny Weinstein gold standard, you need to have the requisite training for that. And you need to have the requisite training quality for that, right? So quality is what matters. And here is where I think we are missing out, because as Anil also pointed out, court-annexed mediation is different from private mediation. Now, court-annexed mediation, perhaps you may get the chance to choose the mediator, but this is where the quality of training comes into play. Because what is the role of the mediator? As Laila said, what is the kind of experience that the parties are going to undergo in the mediation process? Is it going to be something which is not much different from what they are perhaps going to be facing in the court itself? Or is it going to be something which is so different that it transforms the conflict between them? Okay, it helps them to look at the conflict from a completely different perspective and helps them to understand, rise above the differences, and accept the fact that, okay, they need to move on along with those differences or resolving those differences. So there again, the question of standards comes. So what kind of standards are we setting in the mediation? So I think one of the important factors will be to, I'm in full agreement with what both Anil and Laila said, that we need to divorce private mediation from court annexation. And as the Singapore Convention has also done, as Anil pointed out, it doesn't take into cognition mediated settlements arrived at in court annexation, because those go back to the court and they become a part of the court proceeding. Whereas private mediation stands on a completely different. Now, once private mediation becomes a mainstream method of dispute resolution, standards will matter because the market will decide whether you should be engaged as a mediator or you cannot be engaged as a mediator, based on what the people experience through the mediation. Okay, so I think we are all on the same page.
Yeah.
Those issues.
So I'm also intrigued with the discussion very much. So since you have made a point regarding the adding the professionalism to it, more professionalism to make the parties more comfortable with the mediation process. So I would like to come to the Anil sir, that do you think in the US or UK there is a growing trend of many reputed lawyers changing their profession from litigation to becoming mediators? So further, they are in the high demand across various jurisdictions. Similarly, how do you think we can build mediation into a standalone profession? Many of us are looking at, we want to make, mediation as a standalone profession rather than the part-time vocation, which multiple mediators can do in India. So further, how do you think that the Indian mediators can establish their international practice also? And also this mediation as a standalone profession? Over to you, Anil sir.
I can understand many mediators are looking forward for making it as a standalone profession, but definitely not you. You have already become. No, because as I said earlier, mediation has to be a standalone mechanism of dispute resolution and not just a byproduct or a unfortunate second cousin of arbitration. It should never be considered in that manner. See, primarily, we had a mindset because we started using mediation in India primarily for family dispute or something connected with Lok Adalat. So primarily, we were looking at mediation as a free or voluntary service rather than a profession. Actually, in fact, I always used to say, right from the beginning of promoting mediation, we used to say that mediation is cheap. See, actually, we have done a serious disservice to mediation by saying mediation is cheap, because whatever is cheap is perceived to be of inferior quality. And see, take for example, nano cars. It was supposed to be a car for ordinary people, but the moment the marketeers used to say nano is cheap, people started rejecting it because they didn't want something of inferior quality for themselves. See, mediation also suffered the same perception for a long period with corporate world when we said mediation is cheap, because they did not want to associate themselves with something that is cheap. So definitely mediation is less expensive than arbitration and litigation. There is no doubt about it. But to call that mediation is cheap has made a lot of problem for the growth of mediation. See, we cannot expect any serious profession to develop without having the ability to give a sustainable income to the professional who's involved in it. So who practices it? See, Jawad was saying many youngsters are interested to join as mediators. Suppose tomorrow they start their independent profession and they do not have enough means to sustain themselves. Do you think they will continue to be mediators or they'll shift back to litigation? Definitely they're going to shift back to litigation. So if we look at any pro-mediation friendly jurisdiction, a reasonably good mediator charges anywhere in between $5,000 to $10,000 per session in a commercial dispute. It is a skill, it is the expertise, and it's the experience of the mediator which helps the party to arrive at innovative solutions, adding value to the settlements. So it's a great creative skill of the mediator. As Laila said, it's ultimately this mediator's skill that brings out the resolution to the expectation of the parties. And to get that quality service, you need to pay the professional. You could definitely say that mediation is less expensive, there is no problem. But it cannot continue as a free service. There is no doubt you can have provision for pro bono services, you can have adequate legal aid services, all those things can be there. But ultimately, only when we have full-time professional mediators and not part-time mediators who would work. See, now what happens is most of the mediators who work as mediators are working is based on a passion. See, they earn their income either by lawyering or by other professions, and they do mediation as a part-time passion. But it cannot sustain it itself as a profession. And unless, see, another thing is, see, for example, when we're talking about international, see, the topic of today's session is how to make it in par with international sessions. And you were saying how the mediators can expect themselves to be international mediators. See, to make it an international profession, you were saying that most of the UK lawyers or US lawyers have changed their profession as lawyers and convert themselves into mediators. So do you think that just because of their passion to do mediation, they have converted or they have stopped their lawyering profession? Because mediation itself was a rewarding profession for them. See, many high profile lawyers, engineers, judges, they have shifted their profession as full-time mediators, and they have invested their time, experience in this profession. And see, so let us take one example for as a pointer. If you want yourself to be a good international profession, or you have to place yourself as a good international mediator, you need accreditations, you need empanelments. See, for any reasonably good accreditation, international accreditation, you have to pay something around 10,000 to 20,000 rupees per year, annual fee of accreditation. For any empanelment with any international institutions, you'll have to pay maybe 10,000 to 20,000 rupees for empanelment. See, how do you expect an international mediator to pay? See, suppose you are empaneled in 5 institutions and you have an accreditation, maybe 1 or 2 accreditations. You will have to spend around 1 to 1.5 lakhs every year just for accreditations and empanelments. And do you think a mediator will become an international mediator if he's not making any money from mediating and he's just doing it out of passion? And he wants to continue as a global professional. It is not possible. So we need to make this change in the attitude. It is not, see, when I'm saying about this, it is not just confined to India, as Jawad said. It's it's an Asian culture. When we think, see, the problem is we don't take mediation as a skill-based process, because ideally or historically, we think that mediation is an old person who's sitting with the parties trying to resolve them. It's a social service where, see, that is why when we talk about mediation, we still go back to the panchayat system. We think that an old person sitting under the banyan tree, talking to all the people, trying to make a resolution, trying to create harmony. It is his, moral obligation, moral duty to do that. It is not that. See, now the situation has changed. Mediation has become a very, very prominent dispute resolution mechanism for commercial disputes. And the commercial disputants want resolution. They don't need free advice. See, you will only value mediation once the outcome is good. It is economically beneficial for them, and the mediator is also equally paid. See, see, many of these Asian jurisdictions had this problem because, in fact, when we started this Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration Mediation, I had this opportunity to discuss this concept because we wanted to have a common uniform rule and a uniform accreditation in 10 countries, which of course included India, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Australia, South Korea, many of these Asian jurisdictions, Asia Pacific jurisdictions. See, everywhere there is a problem how you can charge into international standards, because many people doesn't want to charge, or if you are asking them to come for mediation and if you're asking them to pay, they may feel a little reluctant. But after discussing with 10 countries, and of course, we had a lot of discussions with the users, with the Chamber of Commerce's, how they would value mediation and how they take mediation. And definitely we were successful in bringing out a common, mediation fee schedule, a common accreditation system, a common rule, which is now in practice in 10 countries. See, this is, of course, when we're talking about accreditation, AppCam would be a good way of accreditation, because in just one accreditation, you are able to practice in 10 countries. So to begin with, instead of having 10 accreditations in 10 different countries, you can have one accreditation and practice in 10 countries. That is one advantage that entry mediator from India can look at. So what I'm saying is professionalism can happen only if the mediator's profession is reasonably well rewarding. Otherwise, if it cannot sustain itself as a profession, it cannot sustain your livelihood properly, then all these initial enthusiasm of youngsters to become mediators will wipe off. So before, attracting the people, see, there are two ways. In fact, see, if you're talking about arbitration, see, when the 1996 Act came in, there were two groups of people. One were people who didn't know about arbitration, and the second group of people were people who were fed up about the 1940 Act. So both these people were reluctant to come to arbitration. So similarly, now we have only two types of people. One is people who don't come towards mediation or come or become mediators. And secondly, those mediators who come to mediation as an aspiring profession, as a fulfilling profession, but do not continue to be in mediation because they cannot sustain their livelihood with mediation. So that will be more dangerous. So before that second stage of slipping away from the profession, the mediators who slip away from the profession because it is not financially viable, we should not allow that to happen. That will be a very dangerous.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. With this, so we need to add more professionalism, more glamour to this profession, so to make it a standalone profession. Thank you so much, sir. With this, I would like to come to Jawad, sir, that with the introduction of the Singapore Convention and India being a signatory to the same, do you think that the convention is capable of creating a positive change towards acceptance of mediation for international disputes? And what change do you think India should incorporate, inculcate to tap into the benefits that may be derived from this convention?
I think, Iram, though very proudly we were the first signatories to the Singapore Convention, I would request all of you to correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have still not ratified the convention. And in order to be able to ratify the convention, we need a law in place which recognizes this. And unfortunately, the draft mediation law deals rather shabbily with international mediations, with the very definition of what is international mediation and the enforcement of international mediated settlement agreements. So one of the first things we require is a robust law on the subject, which deals appropriately with international mediations and the Singapore Convention. That is perhaps one of the first requirements. The second requirement, I think, is the quality of service that we offer. Because if in order to, in a small country like Singapore can have a Singapore International Mediation Center, which is a very sought after institution for referring cases to mediation. Why can India not have a similar setup? So that is a question. And for that, again and again, we come back to standards. Again, we come back to professionalizing mediation. Anil has a point when he says that, I think while on the one hand, court annex mediation did a big service in highlighting the importance of mediation and giving mediation the kind of publicity that it needed. On the other hand, it has also in some way belittled the importance of mediation in the sense that it has made it as a sort of a pro bono service, as a social commitment. Now, any profession is a social commitment, has a social angle to it, but that doesn't mean that a doctor who's treating a patient doesn't charge for the surgery, or a lawyer who's arguing a case for a corporate or even for human rights is not charging a fee for that. So see, the problem here is the way we are treating mediation, whether are we really professionalizing mediation? So in order to be able to professionalize, in order to be able to, make India as one of the mediation hubs, I think we need a lot of things to be done. It's a long journey ahead. And I share Laila's optimism on that score that, we are, I think, heading in that direction. Our progress is very, very slow, not as fast as we would like it to be, but we are nevertheless heading in that direction. And we hope that the government also understands what is the importance of all these things. And, if supposing when we talk of the concept of ease of doing business, one of the most integral aspects of the ease of doing business is the ease of dispute resolution. So if we are talking about foreign direct investment, if we are talking about foreign investors investing in India or carrying on business in India, one of the first questions they perhaps would ask is, how quickly do you resolve your disputes? Because I remember many years back, I was advising a client on an international contract. And from San Jose, one of the CEO of that company had come down here. And in one of our meetings, he was saying, we prefer to deal with China than with India. This was much before I came into mediation or I knew what mediation was all about. And I asked him that, why do you say so? I said that we have a robust legal system here, whereas China, it's very, to me, it looks very ad hoc and it doesn't look as if there's any system as such. And we are much closer to the Anglo-Saxon concept of jurisprudence. So why do you say so? He said, in China, it takes us 3 months to resolve a dispute to the bank at the most. The longest time it takes us 3 months. Whereas in India, we don't know whether in 30 years we are going to have a resolution. So we don't know when it is going to get resolved. So we don't prefer to deal with India, is what he said. So that was something that remained etched in my mind. And when I came across the concept of mediation, I thought perhaps this might be an answer to that. So on the one hand, when we talk of mediation, I think we need to speak of mediation as an expeditious remedy. But at the same time, rewarding enough for the mediator. Okay, because it cannot be that a mediator is throughout, like for 13 years, 15 years now, we have been doing virtually pro bono mediation, because whatever the honorarium that is paid by the courts is nothing compared to the amount of time and effort that we spend in that. And I think that change has to come from there and then also get extended to the field of private mediation. And anything that comes cheap is not valued. I remember a story of Julius Caesar. I don't know how far that is historically true, but it conveys a very important message, because the story goes like this, that Julius Caesar was captured by some pirates and they wanted a ransom for him. And they said, so many, whatever those Roman currency that was prevalent at that time. And Julius Caesar said, what is this? I'm not so cheap. You hike it up. So you make it triple the amount that you're asking for. So when the demand for ransom went, people presumed, oh, this must be somebody really big for the pirates to ask such a huge ransom. So therefore, when we talk of mediation as an expeditious remedy, I think we should talk about it as a quick remedy, which is something that parties can work out with the help of the mediator in a faster manner, and which has an element of finality to it, rather than cheap in the sense, yes, cheap in the sense that the amount of money that you will be spending in a litigation in terms of court fee, the lawyer's fees, the amount that you will be spending in, going to the court and coming back from the court, the amount of man hours that you lose in pursuing a case. In that sense, it will be cheap, but not in terms of the mediator's fees. Okay, so the mediators should be paid a proper professional fee, for the amount of time and energy that they're going to spend on the mediation. And unless you professionalize to that extent, I don't think India will really figure much in the international scene. See, even in the arbitration scene, we have been lagging behind. Smaller countries have overtaken us and they are doing much better than us in the arbitration field. Show me how many countries would prefer to, how many multinational companies would like to have an arbitration in India, unless they're forced to, unless they're dealing with the government and the contract says that you have to have the arbitration in India. People prefer to go outside because they know that the quality and the standards that are there are much better than what we offer in India. So therefore, when we talk of being on the international scene as a name in mediation, I think we need to focus on the quality. We need to focus on the aspect of professionalism, Because only when you get paid, you're really professional. Now, when somebody is doing a court-annexed mediation, there is no accountability at all. Okay, you can threaten the parties, you can coerce the parties, you can do anything you want. Can you do that in the private mediation? You cannot do it. Because there you're getting paid for it, and people are going to look at the quality of service that you render. So what comes free is never valued. And people are so used to getting it free in the courts that they feel that paying for the mediator outside the court is useless. And I've heard lawyers tell the parties that, they approach for private mediation. And when you tell them this is going to be my fee, they tell the parties that, look, we will file a case in the court and get it referred to mediation. And it probably comes back to the same mediator. So this is something that we need to change. The paradigm needs to change, and we need to take a serious relook at that. If at all the Singapore Convention has to have any meaning, and if at all, we need to progress as a country that is a hub for international trade and for international dispute resolution.
Thank you, Jawad sir. You have made various very valid points, and I'm moderating this section. I am feeling so blessed that my friend George Marlowe and Thankachan has given me this opportunity to moderate this section. I am learning a lot from you people, and see, I am having a good food for thought also, and getting a lot of ideas after listening all of you. See, because I feel that what you are saying, that even we don't have an incentive sort of program for the mediators and all. Suppose some sort of incentive could be given. Even if you talk about the mediation lawyers, they will be coming for the mediation. They have to take lesser fee than they will be going to the litigation. So this is a scenario. That is why the lawyers are not coming, the mediators are not coming. Though we have a good pool of mediators, we are having very trained and the good mediators who can handle any kind of dispute. But just because of these issues, the entire practice is discouraging. So thank you so much for bringing these points. And now I'm coming to Anil sir, to you, since Jawad sir has mentioned about the business ease and the people to have, interdependence in the trade and commerce. So do you think a country can dominate itself as a hub of mediation? And if the same is possible, according to you, what steps should India take to make it as a hub for international mediation? We talk about hub in all the webinars and all, but we are not taking the serious steps. So I would like to know from you that what steps should we take to make it actually the hub of international mediation?
No, actually, whenever we hear that India is going to be the hub of arbitration or mediation, we definitely know that there is a conference going on and the law minister or the judge is participating in that conference. Because only then we hear that India is going to be the hub. And we are hearing that for a pretty long time, but we were never able to make India as the hub of arbitration. But talking about mediation, see, there is a major difference here. See, there's a major difference between international arbitration and international mediation. Arbitration is based on the seat of arbitration. That is the jurisdictional place where the arbitration is conducted and where the court's jurisdiction is exercised. No such theory of situs is applicable for mediation, because mediation is based on the domicile or the place of business of the parties. It is not decided on the place of arbitration. There is no situs theory for mediation. So unlike the New York Convention, see, for example, let us look at the New York Convention, because right now we have about 169 countries who are signatories to the New York Convention. And if you compare the Singapore Convention with the New York Convention, there is no reciprocity theory for Singapore Convention. Let me make it more clear, because see, even though there are 169 signatories for the New York Convention, India has notified only 49 countries so far. That means the arbitral awards made in only those 49 countries will be enforced in India when it comes for enforcement in India. But the Singapore Convention has absolutely no comparison with the New York Convention, because it is not situs based. So even though there are only 55 countries who are signatory to the Singapore Convention, any mediated settlement agreement made in any of the 195 countries in the world will be enforceable in India if it comes for enforcement in India. So there is no reciprocity theory here, no reciprocity operation. So once we are a signatory to the Singapore Convention, wherever the mediation settlement be made, in any of the 195 countries of the world, once it is brought for enforcement in India, we will have to enforce it. Because unlike the New York Convention, the convention does not give an option to the country to exclude the jurisdiction of certain countries. It is not possible. So that means the situs is not a criteria. And anywhere, the mediation can happen in any country, and those mediation settlement agreements will be enforceable with any country who's a signatory to the Singapore Convention. It creates a lot of challenge, because if you look at the non-enforceability of the mediated settlement agreement, it entirely connects to the quality of the mediator and the mediation process. That means the ethics of the mediator, the code of conduct of the mediator, the vibrance of the mediation law. So one thing is, unlike arbitration, no country, because we know certain jurisdictions which are dominating the arbitration process, because it is situs based, because you need the support of the courts, because if you look at arbitration, definitely the pre-arbitration process and the post-arbitration process should have the support from the court system. And if you don't have that support, that jurisdiction will not survive. And that is exactly why we could not bring out a good arbitration jurisdiction in India. But mediation is not like that. Mediation is a mediator-friendly or mediator-prone process. So whichever country is going to produce good quality mediators with good code of conduct, with good institutional support, with good mediation law backup, they are going to be good jurisdictions. And no country is going to dominate, and no country can ever hope to create itself as a hub of mediation, because every country is going to be a hub of mediation provided they create good mediators. And now when we're talking about international trade and commerce, see, the era of competition is not there anymore, because all international global businesses are looking at collaborations. And they do not like to go for arbitration, because arbitration is site-based or a seat-based process, and not a single party to a business wants to give that seat to the other party, or give an emphasis to the seat to a party giving an undue advantage. So most of the international businesses are looking at mediation as the primary option, because seat is not the criteria. And wherever they mediate, they only have to look at a good mediator, a good backup institution with the vibrant mediation laws and mediation rules. Because the mediation law or a Singapore Convention only can give a broad outline of the mediation. But how the process should be, how effective should be. See, like nowadays, the concept like project mediation is coming up, where right from the signing of the contract, a mediator is appointed to oversee the entire contract process. So many innovative methods are being adopted by international user community or international commercial parties to make use of mediation as a not only as a dispute resolution process, but also a dispute management process where they can conclude the entire contract without any dispute. So talking about India to become a hub of mediation, I don't think we have to, we have to give more emphasis on the law itself. We have to give more emphasis on the quality of the mediators we produce for making them internationally recognizable. Because see, we can't, see, suppose I go and train myself as a good mediator. See, only I know that I have undergone a training, but a user doesn't know that. So you have to place the mediators in the international platforms to select them as good mediators. So that is a great effort that India will have to take, because in a competitive world, when every country is going to vie on mediation, because see, their chance of becoming an arbitration hub is gone. So now every country, all the 195 countries will be vying or will be competing to make them as a good mediation hub. So India will also have to be very strong in following that. And along with the mediation law, which will come, that will only be maybe 5% which can help in the growth of mediation. But 95% of the growth of mediation and the quality of how we are going to project ourselves as good mediation-friendly country will depend on how effective our mediators are and how effective our code of conduct and the ethics will be. And coming back again to the remuneration of the mediator, all these depends on how remunerative the mediation profession will be. Otherwise, you will not get quality mediators.
Thank you so much, sir, for making all the mediators who have joined today feeling them that they will be rewarded and it could be a remunerative, profession. And also I could understand that reciprocity is something which is not there jurisdictional per se in mediation. That is what in arbitration is. So if technically we say that we are far better than the New York Convention in the Singapore Convention, because we can have an ease with 55 countries as of now today. If we rectify that, we need not to have a reciprocal arrangement like what we have in New York Convention. Thank you so much for bringing up this point, and it's a very, very unique and distinct point, sir. So with this, I would like to go to Lala, sir, for the quick answer. That what is in your opinion, that do you think India is unable to come at par with international mediation standard because of the dearth in the quality of the private mediation centers? What do you think, ma'am? Do you think that could be done to change the future scenario? A very quick answer for this.
Okay. Yes, private mediation centers are important because it provides rules. Private mediation centers are based on rules, and therefore there's accountability, transparency, code of conduct. Secondly, private mediation institutions provide a panel of mediators, which helps parties to have a choice in this voluntary process. Thirdly, private institutions can create an environment, a space for dispute resolution, for collaborative dispute resolution. And how we do it, I think it's important to know that the courts have a very important role to create private institutions. And I can tell you how. The courts, majority of our mediators are from the court programs. If these mediators are selected mindfully by the court system, those who can eventually have the skills to become international mediators, those who have the leadership qualities to set up private institutions. Because let me tell you, it's not easy to set up a private institution. It is not easy to market your services, to maintain the standards. So the courts have a very important responsibility. They hold the key to choose good mediators. Send them into the court programs. Send them diverse cases, because nowhere can you get the experience, the ability to mediate hundreds of cases. When I was in the court program, every mediation that I did was a case study. I made notes, I made lecturettes. It was the opportunity to try different kinds of skills. Send cases, diverse cases to these mediators to mediate. But don't let them stay in the court program forever. After that, move them out into the community to market their skills, to improve their skills, and become international mediators, and bring in new mediators. There should be the dynamic of inflow and outflow. And then the courts, the judges will feel confident when they refer cases for mediation to say, go for mediation, choose court or private. So courts hold the key to incubate, nurture, encourage, and promote good mediators.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Jawad sir, would you like to add something in the end, very quick and response that how you could see the court could be supportive towards the private mediation?
I am slightly diffident about that point of view.
Okay.
I feel that court annex mediation is going on in its own way. And I think the domain of private mediation should be something that is perhaps outside the purview of the courts. Though in one sense, it is beneficial for the courts to promote private mediation. Because what happens in a court annex mediation program is there are a lot of dynamics operating over there. We are not able to really ensure the quality. We are not really able to, yes, of course, we're from the court annex mediation program. We need to acknowledge that. And we are very, very grateful to the courts for the kind of training that we got and for the kind of opportunities that we got, the kind of exposure that we got in terms of gaining experience in mediation. Having said that, but I still believe that, courts have a limited role in this. They have discharged, they have performed their role. And now the courts should allow the private mediation to grow on its own. Of course, if the law comes and we need some regulatory bodies, we need some standards, all those things apart, I think private mediation should be allowed to grow and flourish on its own. And for the Court Annex program, you have your Court Annex training programs, which give you the accreditation to practice in the courts. But I think apart from that accreditation, I think those who aspire to be private mediators should also go in for accreditation from other international bodies, from other international organizations, and perhaps get training or better training also from other organizations, so that when you're able to compete with the best in the international scene. So therefore, I feel that, these are two different things, two separate things. As I said earlier, the court the court is going to benefit from the growth of private mediation in the sense that disputes that get resolved through mediation are not going to come to court, and therefore, in a sense, the court is going to benefit out of that. But at the same time, if the court is going to control even the private mediation, the growth of private mediation, then there are other dynamics that come into play. Okay, notwithstanding the court's good intentions of doing it. Okay, but still, what happens is, in those dynamics come into operation, and the standards may not be to the same level that we would, expect to be able to compete with the international, standards of mediation. So that is my only point of view. This may not be construed as going against the Court Annex mediation program. I am a part of it. I'm very proud to be a part of it. Okay, and it has given me the kind of exposure and the experience that perhaps I would have never got from anywhere else. I'm very grateful for that. But having said that, I still feel that, private mediation should be something that should be kept aside. Because now if you look at the Commercial Courts Act, it talks of private mediation, 12A, but unfortunately it gives the complete control to the Legal Services Authority. So unless and until you do a mediation from a mediator who's empaneled with the Legal Services Authority, it will not be recognized as a valid mediation. Now that becomes a stumbling block in the growth of private mediation. So that is where I feel that, whether it is the statutes or the courts, the parliament or the courts, you should promote private mediation as an independent professional enterprise that should be allowed to grow and flourish on its own, so that the market decides the standards, the market will recognize its value, and the market will allow it to grow on its own. So that is where I beg to differ slightly from what Laila has said.
Okay, so sometimes disagree is also a very good agreement, So thank you so much.
I want to correct myself. I do not say they should both be controlled, but I say this can be a good source of getting good mediators, like you and Anil and I. All of us got our initial exposure from the courts, and that's where the courts hold the key.
No doubt about it. I agree with you on that. But when it comes to private mediation,
and the courts are listening.
Yeah, the judges, the honorable judges are here.
Yeah, they are listening.
In spite of all that, I'm taking the courage to say this, because I feel that sincerely that private mediation should be allowed to grow and flourish on its own. And that is how the court is going to benefit from it, rather than controlling the growth of private mediation. So, that's fine. Thank you.
Question answer time.
I would like to add something onto that.
Yes, sir. I was thinking as much.
No, since it's a very good discussion, because see, there's when we are talking about Court Annex mediation, see, there is one thing, because see, when the Supreme Court of India thought about accrediting the senior Cotonex mediators to international standards. They wanted to have one. And I had the opportunity to be in the interview board with Justice Nariman and Justice Indu Malhotra, where we conducted interviews of some of the senior mediators, Cotonex mediators in the Supreme Court for giving them accreditations. So I was astonished to see the experience that the Cotonex mediators had, because see, when you're talking about private mediators having, see, if you're talking about IMI certification, the requirement is 200 hours of mediation. And if you're talking about, see, many of the organizations insist for 150 hours or 200 hours of mediation. But most of the Cotonex mediators in the Supreme Court had 15,000 hours, 20,000 hours of mediation behind them. And in spite of that, they were not able to mediate a single international mediation. So that is where this contradiction happens. So what I would like to propose is, see, let the senior mediators be able to do private mediation, and let the court continue to do pro bono mediations and give the option for the mediators to mediate giving their time, so that the mediators get the experience of doing mediation, and the Cotonex mediation centers will get the service of mediators free of cost, so that both their requirements are satisfied. Because for any accreditation, a private mediator needs the hours behind them, and no private mediator is going to get the hours if they're going to do it private, because no private mediation center or no company is going to appoint any mediator without an accreditation. And for an accreditation, you need a minimum hours of experience. And that hours of experience can come in only if they do mediation pro bono. So they can offer the services to all the Cotonex mediation centers, and they can do mediation free of cost, and they can accumulate the hours that they need. And another thing is, even for Cotonex mediation, so even when we had that interview, many senior mediators were afraid about the feedbacks that they got from the users. Because as Jawad really said, in Cotonex mediation centers, the mediators have a party because they are being sent by the court, and you can coerce them, you can what do you call, you can put pressure on them, whatever you need to do, you can do. But the problem is, once you get the feedback of the clients, and that is a very crucial document in any accreditation, because how the users have given the opinion about you as a mediator, and how the mediation was conducted. And many of the Cotonex mediators, senior mediators, when they got the feedbacks, they were astonished to see how they were viewed or they were evaluated by the parties. So even in Cotonex mediation, one mandatory requirement is to get the feedback, digest feedback of the users, so that can be used for accreditations, even for private mediations or private accreditation, because all the Cotonex mediations are having a lot of mediation hours within them. So they can use it, because unless you have accreditations, you will not be able to embark into international mediation practice. So that is one thing that we can look at.
Now it is 11:45.
Yeah, so I'm, yeah, in 5 minutes, I am winding it up.
Okay,
Yeah, so, yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending this. And thank you, honorable panelists, for enlightening us your opinion on measures that can be adopted to remove the structural issues in the mediation paradigm for the country. I certainly feel your suggestions on the mediation centers, draft mediation bill, mediators, standards, ethics, and etc. will aid in laying the foundation upon which an efficient and sustainable mode of mediation can be created in the country. And I have a small surprise for all the participants and for the panelists as well. So that's a 2-3 minute task only. So as we know that in this age of social media, where attention span of the people is reducing and the need for the short and crisp content is increasing, as I am moderator, intend to end this session with one small exercise, which I am sure will not only be pertinent for today's discussion, but also a fun filled with Swift. I will be asking a rapid fire questions, 1 or 2 with our respected panelists, and will be answering them in a second with a very short and crisp answer. And for that, I would be beginning the first question with the Anil sir. Sir, do you think that if you would choose as your mediator, so Kim Jong-un or Donald Trump?
Who?
Kim Jong-un or Donald Trump. So suppose if you have a option, whom you will be choosing your mediator?
I prefer quotes.
Okay, thank you. So Jawad sir, please define what mediation means to you in 3 words.
It's my religion.
Thank you so much. So Laila ma'am, which big conflict, domestic, international disturbance, or hostile event in the world history do you think would have been averted through mediation? Any conflict?
The Kashmir issue.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Anil sir, where would you prefer location to mediation and why?
Location of mediation. I would prefer, prefer a cruise so that the mediator will remain at the same station.
Okay. And Jawad sir, what would you be? Okay, so Jawad sir, that suppose there will be your personal mediation, and who will be your preferred mediator in the Indian jurisdiction?
Laila?
Good. Thank you so much. And Laila ma'am, in your opinion, which is the most mediation friendly court in India?
I'm happy with many courts who are promoting mediation, even private mediation, including the Supreme Court, who are referring now cases for private mediation. So I'm not going to exercise a choice, but I'm encouraged by the Supreme Court, the Karnataka High Court. They are taking these progressive steps.
So thank you so much, all the panelists, for enriching session. And this will be a small capacity building, not lesser than the capacity building program. So over to you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Ram ma'am, Laila ma'am, Jawad sir, and Anil Xavier sir. It was a very enlightening discussion. And though there was a comment that it went a bit here and there, but it's okay with regard to the private mediation. Then I hope, I won't go into any details because ma'am has already stressed the important aspects. So hope in the near future, India will become a hub for mediation. And also with the words, Hum honge kamyab ek din, I come to the end of this session. With a short break, we will be reassembled within 10 minutes, I think. So we'll go for a break now and be sharp on time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the panelists. Thank you, the moderators. And thank you, all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pankaj,
Yes.
how did it go?
I think it went off very well.
Yeah. Okay. ഞാൻ ഷിറാസിനെ പേഴ്സണലായിട്ട് വിളിക്കാൻ വേറെ കാര്യം പറയാനുണ്ട്. ഇതിനിടയിൽ എനിക്ക് ചില കോളൊക്കെ വന്നു.
Lot of knowledge was shared.
ഇടയിൽ കോളൊക്കെ വന്നു എനിക്ക്.
ആണല്ലേ? Okay.
എന്തായാലും എനിക്ക് വളരെ ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. നല്ല ഡിസ്കഷൻ ആയിരുന്നു.